Imagine a matchup where Messi would face Maradona or Jordan would face Lebron. It's far from reality for us to see matchups of the greatest of different generations, but we chess fans are often blessed. Judit Polgar is one of the greatest ever players and the best woman ever to touch the game. Breaking into the FIDE top 100 at just 12 years old, and the only woman to get the Super GM status, defeating greats like Kasparov. She is a veteran of the sport. On the other hand, we have Magnus Carlsen, the world champion who needs no introduction. The last time the two met, Magnus would have the final laugh, but Judit would have her chance for revenge, years after her retirement. This time, in a blitz match in a park. Judit starts the match with e4 and jokes around that she started her career in a park. Magnus responds with c5, starting the Sicilian. Judit brings her knight out. e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4. We have an open Sicilian here, nc6, nc3 and a6. This is the Taimanov variation of the Sicilian. Judit continues developing her pieces, bringing out her dark squared bishop to e3. Magnus responds with a passive move. qc7. Judit plays key d2, strengthening her dark squares. f6. Judit plays f3, strengthening her center pawn. Magnus is behind in development. He could have brought his dark squared bishop to an aggressive square like b4 or c5. But he plays bishop e7, another passive move. Judit castles queenside. Magnus plays b5, gaining space on the queen side since Judit decided to castle that way. Judit plays g4, launching an attack towards the king side. Magnus feels that if white decides to take on c6, it might lead to several uncomfortable positions for black. So he decides to get rid of the pressure and initiates the exchange with knight takes d4. Judit takes with the bishop and Magnus fine-shadowed his light-squared bishop into action. Now, several thousand matches have gone along these exact lines according to the database. The most common move right now is to push the g-pawn forward to g5, forcing the knight to move out of position. But this isn't any other mere mortal. This is Judit Polgar. She decided to do something that no one in the history of chess has done before. She played e5. Now, obviously, the knight has to move. At the same time, you could see that she hung the pawn on g4. Well, if you can't catch it at first, look even closer. You could see that black's light-squared bishop has an X-ray on white's king side rook. If knight takes g4 and the f-pawn takes the knight, then white loses its rook and a pawn for a knight. Instead of taking the free pawn, Magnus could move his knight towards d5, maintaining knight's control over the center. But he got a free pawn, right? What could possibly go wrong? Magnus takes the free pawn. Knight takes g4. Polgar responds with rook g1. This activates the rook, forcing black's knight to move away to a6. As the old saying goes, knight on the rim is dem. Magnus and Judit joke about the position of his knight. Judit's rook is very powerful with a nearly open file in front of it, and the g7 pawn is unprotected. If Judit takes the free pawn on g7, Magnus can respond by bringing back the knight, with knight f5, forking the rook and the bishop. Judit, unlike Magnus, decides not to fall to greed and plays bishop d3. The motive behind this is to possibly play bishop e4 in the coming moves to trade black's powerful light-squared bishop and create a path for her knight. Now, Magnus does a move that confuses everyone. FIDE. Magnus is already underdeveloped, and he decides to bring back his dark squared bishop. The look on Judit's face says that she was bewildered. The fact is, Magnus did not have many moves that he could play in this situation. He thought that reinforcing the g7 pawn could be the best thing to do. As expected, Judit plays the move bishop to e4, challenging black's control over the long diagonal. Magnus, much behind in development and control, takes a couple of seconds to think and decides to bring his rook into action by playing rook c8. Not sure if she was thinking or got surprised, but Judit paused for a second and realized that the world champion had made a blunder. And then came Judit's crushing move. You guys can pause the video and take a guess on what this move is. Judit plays bishop b6. Wait, isn't she just hanging another piece? If the queen takes the free bishop, then queen takes d7 checkmate. The only option Magnus has is to give up his queen and take the white bishop. Bishop takes e4. Bishop takes d7. Bishop c6. Judit moves her bishop to d6, offering a trade. Magnus plays knight f5, to which Judit responds with knight e4. Now, take a second and think. Do you think a world champion would blunder and lose a queen, or does he have a trick up his sleeve? Well, that day he definitely did not and was outsmarted by the veteran. Magnus shook hands and resigned after the wonderful game they had. What do you think will happen if the two matched up again? Let us know in the comments below.